probably work at
conference will
least.
now be recorded.
Oh, we got the message it's recording. Okay, so anyway, so I still probably do about half of my days at home, because a lot of our meetings are Zoom meetings with DHS and with Oklahoma Mental Health Substance Abuse Services and our federal partners. A lot of them use Zoom for meetings. So some days I'm both places, both at the juvenile center and here, depending on the meetings. And after we get done with this today, I have a Zoom meeting. So today I'm just going to do all this from home. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you just a little bit about myself, and then I'm gonna ask you to share a little bit about yourselves. I know that everybody on here, we have a wide variety of backgrounds. For me, I guess my educational experience has been diverse. I've got degrees in equine science, accounting, religion, and social work. And my work has been in business. I was a youth minister for 20 years and have been working with the courts now since 2005. So I guess is that about 16 years, something like that. But part of my work, and this will all lead into our discussion today on child permanency mediation. But part of my work has been in these last 16 years. The first part of that, I worked as a secretary bailiff out in Blaine County, and so part of my job was to set up meeting notices and that kind of a thing for our PARB board, working on making sure that they had their files and that kind of a thing, sitting in on trainings for PARB members, that kind of a thing. And then after being there for the number of years that I was, and the judge I worked for, who was very involved in juvenile cases across the state. He actually served on the state PARB board, Mark Moore, for a number of years. So I got even probably more connected with PARB, got more connected with things that the court improvement program was doing in regards to juveniles. And with a background in youth ministry and now then in the courts, one thing I realized was that I didn't have a voice in what was going on with juveniles. And so I had decided at that point to go back and finish my master's in social work, and then was fortunate enough to come and work with the Children's Court Improvement Program. So that and so my responsibilities with the Court Improvement Program is I'm a juvenile court project specialist, and that entails working with our CIP grant, working with data collection, continuous quality improvement. I'm a liaison between the courts and our MIS department in regards to juvenile matters. And then I am also the coordinator for child permanency mediation. So Keith was putting on different hats a little bit earlier, and I know I've visited with Jeanette, and she wears a lot of different hats, and I feel like I do the same thing on a daily basis. Another thing that takes up a lot of my time is our work with our ICWA partnership grant. But anyway, enough about me. I'm interested in who else is on this call. and maybe a little bit about your background so I understand my audience. And so if you, I don't know, Keith, I could go around, I can go, the names I can see on here, I can go around. What I would like to know is who you are. And then if you want to add a little bit more about who you are other than your name, but I want to know what got you interested in being a PARB volunteer. So the first name on top of mine is Amy Martin. Amy, if you want to unmute yourself and share.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Amy Martin, and I am the director for Step Up Transitional Living, and we are a transitional living program in Weatherford. And I was interested in PARB just so I could learn a little bit more about the process and the things that my youth have experienced. I have a master's in counseling and a bachelor's in social work, and I worked 11 years with the state of Oklahoma through vocational rehabilitation.
And do you work, where is your PARB board? What PARB board are you part of?
Custer County.
Custer County. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Linda Sadler.
Okay, hi, I'm sorry. I'm working on a new laptop and I haven't exactly figured out how to use it yet.
Okay.
I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. I am also a former foster parent, and I am a retired City of Tulsa employee. I have a degree in accounting and spent the majority of my career working in accounting and human resources. I become involved in PARB in Okmulgee County and because of my foster parent experience. And I just love kids, and I've got like 15 grandkids, and I think I've got now in October I'll have my 12th great grandchild.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very interested in helping in any way I can with the foster system and getting kids keeping them as safe as possible, because I have seen firsthand what's going on out there, and it's really bad in Okmulgee County, and they need all the help they can get.
Okay. Thanks, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jonette. You're still muted. Oops. There should be a button at the bottom.
There you
There you are.
Yeah. Well, I got completely backed out of this thing. I don't know how I was able to get back in, but anyway, I'm here. I don't know, all those grandchildren and great grandchildren. I don't know how you have any time for PARB. I'm a retired teacher, and I got into PARB because I was a counselor, and I developed a friendship with Clara Cunningham, who was a tribal representative, and she passed away at a very young age, but she's the one that got me into PARB, and that was when Judge Kirby was in charge of the PARB thing back then. And the things just kind of go hand in hand in juvenile court, because if you're a CASA, you might as well be a PARB member too. I mean, so if you do one thing, then you it's giving you the basis for you to work in some other areas too. So anyway, when I retired, I knew that I was going to be working with kids in some form or fashion. And I ended up coming back to the Juvenile Bureau, where I started in the 70s as a volunteer. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fowler, is it Kiona? Am I saying that correctly?
You are, yeah, that's correct. I'm Kiona Fowler, work for Oklahoma City Public Schools as a school climate specialist, and my background is in counseling, mental health, worked for the Office of Juvenile Affairs for a while as their school psychometrist and school counselor, and that's when I first became interested in wanting to be a PARB volunteer, and then I moved to Texas for a little bit, took a job there, and so it didn't work out for me. When I came back, I was like, I want to do this. And so I reached out, and I've been part of that since. The part that I like the most is being able to contribute anything I can to the education side of it, particularly looking at special education and IEPs, 504s, things like that. Yeah, I like to, I guess what I could say is when I was working for OJA, what I would find a lot is kids would come to us, the youth would come to us missing credits or, you know, their paperwork being lost for special education services, all of those different things. And it was so frustrating trying to link the different parts together. And so I see that with PARB too, everyone trying to come together and put those parts together. And so just being an educational component or piece the best that I can is how I see myself fitting in, and I hope that I am helpful in that way. So.
All right, thank you. Monique.
So I came out of the corporate world, 30 years in high tech, and when I retired, I decided I needed to get involved with PARB. Mine is personal experience. I have a private adoption grandchild. I have three legal permanent guardianship that just turned into adoption in November, and I do have a bio granddaughter as well. I serve on the Delaware County PARB board and was privileged enough to work with Keith and others as we brought up the Ottawa PARB, I can talk today, Ottawa County PARB board in January. So we actually work both boards in Judicial District number 13.
Okay, thank you very much. Michelle.
I volunteer on Board 1 for Tulsa County. I have a background in business, but I am a former foster parent. We had our last placement leave in January. We're on hold right now and just providing respite. With being a foster parent, I just saw how overwhelmed DHS was and the foster parents as well. So I just wanted to help out where I could.
Okay, thank you. Gizal.
Hi, I have done a lot of different random things, and they all kind of go together under the child welfare or social work kind of world. For 4 years, I investigated discrimination with HUD and EEOC on the state level that worked with them. And then I came to child welfare. I was a case aide, a permanency worker in Midwest City. Then I was at GE, became a 3, became a permanency supervisor, went to kids, so the computer system where all this stuff is housed, gathered requirements, helped build some of those screens, tested them, then got special dutied by the previous director to continuous quality improvement, track data analysis, validation on maltreatment and care. So the foster parents hurting the kids or the bio parents hurting the kids while they're in care. It was one of the metrics in the Pinnacle Plan lawsuit, and worked with the monitors. Left continuous quality improvement, became a compliance manager, which was, you think that child welfare is rough when you try to make AFS, child support, and child welfare play together in their regulations and none of them match federally. Trying to replace a legacy system becomes quite hard. And then now I am at the Office of Client Advocacy. I do youth grievances. Just so everybody knows, I'm going to do a little plug. Anybody can file on behalf of a youth at okfosteryouthmatters.org. Tell your friends. That's served by child welfare and the vulnerable adult for DDS. My background is a bachelor's in sociology and a master's in human relation organizational development. So.
And with PARB, how are you connected then with PARB?
Well, I was child welfare, so I used to get the PARB notices. Didn't really know the full process at the time then as a worker, and I was interested when I found out about it, but obviously did not have time because that's whenever we had like 85 children. I think I stopped counting at 85 once that we were responsible for. And Jonette, did we have a meeting? Did I work with you in the past where we got called to Judge Hammond's courtroom over the dad that had bought all the girls' promise rings? Or was that somebody else? You look so familiar, but been in child welfare for a long time, never meant to be here, but it kind of ended up being my passion. And then I picked up the IT stuff and the data validation stuff and continuous quality improvement, process improvement on the way. So it's good. I have a unique skill set here. So
Right. And I think that's probably where we first met. Some of that
yeah,
data.
I was on the court improvement project for
Right.
CQI. So
Okay. All right. Thank you. Shelley.
I am in Pot County and I'm a CASA. So being a CASA and attending the PARB board meetings, I became a PARB board member. But our PARB board is kind of in a reorganization right now, and Keith is trying to help us revamp it and get some new members. So right now our PARB board is not meeting, but my background is accounting, but I have been a CASA for almost 4 years.
Okay. Thank you. Susan.
I serve on the Creek County PARB board. My background is a bachelor's in elementary ed and a master's in learning disabilities. I was a teacher for 32 years, but have now been retired for 21. So I'm officially OLD. I got on the PARB board through Susie Henderson because I have been quite active in volunteering for Kids Closet, where we give quite a bit of new clothing to any child who qualifies on free or reduced lunches, which in Creek County is most everyone. And then I've had a lot of contact with foster children, being elementary students, being in and out kind of the classroom setting.
Okay. Thank you.
Tim, can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
Just want to make sure. I think did Deanne? Did you just get on?
I'm on.
Hey, good job. So we're just to bring you up to speed. We're going around doing introductions real quick.
Okay.
So I guess you can hear okay because you're hearing me talk, and we can hear you.
Yes, I can.
So good deal. As soon as we're done doing introductions, Tim's going to jump into his presentation. So
Are you going to add her name? I'm assuming she's caller 2.
She is, and once I know who that is, I have all kinds of powers. I can type in her name.
The Wizard of Oz, who is the person behind the screen. All right. So the next person I see here, it says C. Bacon on your screen.
Hi, I'm Cindy Bacon. I'm on the Canadian County PARB. My career started with the Office of Juvenile Affairs many years ago as probation and parole officer. When Canadian County became a bureau county, I went to the county and helped get that up and going, and I ended up supervising probation officers through there. I realized how closely we really needed to work with DHS because we shared so many clients. Also worked with Systems of Care, bringing that initiative to Canadian County. And through that, I got to spend training in Washington, D.C. with a child welfare worker. We shared a room. Excuse me. And that really helped kind of show, the differences between what we do. And so right now, that's where I stand.
Okay. Thank you. Kenneth.
That's you.
What's that, Keith?
That's actually Carol Wade.
Oh, Carol. Carol Wade. I know Carol Wade.
Can you hear us okay?
Carol, are you up?
We're not hearing you. All right, maybe we should move on, Tim.
Okay, we'll see if we can come back and figure out how to get her on here. Deanne Johnson.
Yes. Hi, I'm from Veneta, Oklahoma, and I'm new to this. My background is I'm a lawyer, and I'm a parent, and I've been a foster parent, and I've been a judge that dealt with mental health issues and criminal issues and other issues, and I've been a patient advocate for the mentally ill. So those are the things that I bring to this, just life experiences. And I'm pretty old, so that's a lot of life experience.
All right, thank you. Loretta.
Yes, I'm retired from corporate America, and after retirement, I really wanted to help. And Carol recruited me to be a CASA, and after numerous years of being a CASA, I was really interested in being on the PARB board.
Okay. And are you there in Garfield County, Loretta? Or?
Yes, Garfield County.
So Carol, do you want to try one more time to see if you unmute to whether we can hear you? I'm still not picking up on yours. I'm sorry. I don't know how to try to fix that in this system. So. All right. Okay. Well, we will move on. I think one of the key things in listening to everyone share, and this has been something throughout on a federal level, they talk about child welfare as being a system. It is not just DHS or child welfare workers. It is education, and it is the courts, and it is so many other components that feed into this system that all have that same goal of protecting children, making sure that children are safe. And I got to listen to Keith make a presentation to the OICWA board the other day, and just reminded me the thing that we have in common between PARB and everyone else is that we don't want children to be lingering in foster care or in state custody any longer than absolutely necessary, and working with families to make those improvements. And so child permanency mediation also plays a role in that. That's kind of what our goal is. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen, and hopefully I can do this so that I can still see you all. It may take me just a moment to do that. I'll leave my screen on my second screen, maybe. Oops.
We can see the presentation and we can see you.
Okay, very good. Very good. I just can't figure out how to make my stuff larger on this, but I'm just going to go with it. I may not look at the camera, but we can do with that. So child permanency mediation, the most important thing, most important aspect of this for me is that it gives parents an opportunity to be involved in active decision making in the case that they're involved in. I just recently did a kind of a revamping of our child permanency mediation training. And we added a component, and I've had conversations with trainers in DHS. One of the things that I've really been looking into is the effect of trauma on parents and the impact of having children removed. And you know, if you have sat in court in child welfare cases, and you have listened to court hearings, some courts are very, very good about engaging parents in discussion during a permanency review. Other courts, it maybe not quite so much. The attorneys talk for the parents. A lot of times, if there are very heavy caseloads, possibly the only time that parents are getting to visit with their attorneys are when they are in court or just briefly before court. So I think this is kind of an opportunity for child permanency mediation to step in and be involved. And what I'm hoping that we can come around to, maybe even at the very end of this presentation, and for me, a key reason for sharing this information with PARB is your reviews. When you review these cases and you notice that a case is stuck, either the parents are not engaged or it looks like there are problems with a case. I truly believe that on your recommendation forms to the court, that you can recommend that they send this case to permanency mediation. It truly does give, like I said, it gives parents an opportunity to sometimes hear things that they have not heard before. It gives the parents an opportunity to share information that maybe the whole group has never heard before. But I put this quote up there that there's all the difference in the world between having something to say and having to say something. And it, you know, sometimes you have to kind of think about that. And a lot of times I think parents have something to say, but when they're given the opportunity to say something, it's very intimidating, especially if you're in a courtroom. And those of you that have child welfare background, you know just how intimidating that can be for parents. We all have, those who work in the courts and have that kind of experience of being in court, we kind of get used to it. We get used to the environment. We get used to all the activity that's happening, and we kind of begin to forget what a parent might be experiencing. I have, with my youth ministry background, when I started to work for the court, I realized very quickly that a courtroom and a church sanctuary had a lot in common. Being a staff member in both places, you know, I had a whole different comfort level. You were in church, you know, if you grew up in the church, you know, your parents had instilled in you a certain kind of behavior that you had in the sanctuary. We have kind of those behavior standards in a courtroom. And as a staff person, if there was something needed taken care of in either situation, as a staff person, you could get up, go take care of it, and go on. But for the other participants, there's not necessarily that comfort level, especially especially for parents. And I think it's maybe fairly rare that we actually have children in our hearings. So a lot of times we don't ever know what the children even look like that we are discussing the outcomes for them. So when we have an opportunity to do a permanency mediation, we are in kind of more of a neutral setting. Our mediators are trained to kind of help people be comfortable and have those discussions. And everyone gets an opportunity to speak. So I'm going to see if this is going to allow me to advance my slides. Okay. So, and I realize I'm talking to volunteers. Well, have any of you that are in this meeting in any of your capacities been involved in a child permanency mediation? Seeing some heads shaking no. So a child permanency mediation is, in my records, we typically have I think we average 12 people in a child permanency mediation. So you've got a large group of people. Just a little bit of background in child permanency mediation. I'll give you a little bit of this information, and we won't dwell on it very long. We'll get down to some more of the intricacies of that. But just for sake of understanding this, and Keith had even asked that I kind of maybe talk a little bit about the administrative office of the courts. So child permanency mediation is a joint project between the Oklahoma Children's Court Improvement Program and the Alternative Dispute Resolution Program. It is offered across the state in all counties. We have mediation program, Early Settlement Mediation. Some of you are familiar with that, possibly. Early settlement, we do small claims, we do family and divorce, they do real estate. They have done more and more guardianship mediations, and then permanency mediation. I'll come back to the administrative office of the courts. And then just really briefly, and I could guess at some point, Keith, if you want, we could send out some of this information. That I just had made a slide that gives just a little bit of information about the court improvement program, and sounds like a lot of people, some of the people on this group maybe have had some connection with CIP, have maybe attended some of our trainings. We have CASAs that attend some of our statewide and regional trainings. I don't know, Keith, have you had the opportunity to attend our CIP conferences?
Yes.
Okay. And has Felice ever had you do a presentation on PARB at either Judicial Conference or CIP?
Yeah, Judge Versteeg put one together.
That's right.
Like 2 years ago.
Okay. So Keith had mentioned also some of the other work that PARB is associated with. I believe Keith is also on our multidisciplinary task force for CIP. So that kind of goes into that whole idea of being part of a system. PARB is part of that system, and we're all related. But CIP we operate on 3 different grants: data, basic, and our training grants. Let me move just a little bit through here. Like I said, ADR and early settlement are available. Their services are available, and those services are free, available across the state. Here's kind of a breakdown of the areas, our current areas that are served by early settlement. And each of our directors in those areas, they are all trained in child permanency mediation. Some of the different areas have some people that are some of their volunteers that kind of focus on child permanency mediation. I think somebody talked about Okmulgee County. You know, the early settlement program out of Tulsa services Okmulgee County, and they have a person who is a college professor, I believe, who has been doing child permanency mediations for them, and using virtual platform to do that. Probably has been our most successful mediator in child permanency using virtual platform. Most of us do our permanency mediations in person. So benefits, and I think somebody had asked about whether we were going to talk about outcomes. So this maybe looks at. Let me stop just a second. Are there any questions about anything that I've shared? No. Okay, and Keith, I don't know whether you have access to look at the chat or not, but
we all have access. I didn't mention that earlier, but the little voice bubble in the top right, you click on that. Anybody can because I already did it. Anybody can type a message if you wish.
Okay. So outcomes and looking at some of the benefits of permanency mediation absolutely improves communications, helps us to clarify issues, allows for creative solutions, improves contact between parents and their attorneys, and improves outcomes for children and families. I had another note on some of that. And again, I'm trying to put this into a volunteer's perspective. And kind of a more of an experience kind of a format. So when we do a permanency mediation, we literally will go around the room and ask people to share what they feel is in the best interest of the children. Has always been the focus of permanency mediation. And so you're going to get, depending on the stage of the case, you're going to get different kinds of perspectives. Most parents will say that it's in the best interest of their children to be returned to their home. And that may be a consensus agreement, especially early on in a case. And there are potentially issues that have stalled the case. There's disagreements sometimes between DHS and the parents. Sometimes it's on the different services that they're being required. And sometimes there's barriers that occur in parents being able to access services. I know that having worked in Western Oklahoma, there were times when the only services of particular services available to a parent were in Oklahoma City. And sometimes parents didn't have transportation. And so many times they were able to discuss these kinds of things in a mediation that maybe they felt like they weren't being heard on in a court hearing. But everybody in the mediation gets an opportunity to share what they feel like is in the best interests, and then we go around trying to find a consensus recommendation that will go back to the court on how to help move the case forward. That improved communication also is between attorneys and their clients. The last two mediations that I have done in the last couple of weeks, both of those, you could tell just from body posture and that kind of a thing that there were parents who were very uncomfortable speaking to this large group. And so we have an opportunity in mediation to caucus and take the attorney and their client to another room and visit about particular issues, and that can absolutely change the whole demeanor of the mediation.
So Tim,
yes.
This is Monique. How does this differ from family team meetings?
Okay. It is what's the phrase? There is always a power equation when it comes to, I think, permanency cases, probably in any kind of a case. So a family team meeting is who is conducting the family team meeting? Do you know that answer, Monique?
Yeah, well, in what I've been privy to is typically it's DHS.
Right. And a lot of, I think in some of our larger counties, and Gazelle probably can answer this too, you have maybe specified people who conduct those. Is that right, Gazelle?
Yeah, in a lot of the counties, especially the bigger counties, they have specialized units that do the child safety meetings or the family team meetings, and they have their own facilitators that aren't part of the case.
Right. And so their work is very important. And a lot of times they are able to resolve things, especially like if it's referrals and different kinds of things, or we're looking at extended family interaction and how extended family can help. But the key difference in mediation, everything we talk about in mediation is confidential. And the only thing that would come out of a mediation that anybody else would ever see is a consensus recommendation back to the court, where everyone in there has a say in what goes into that consensus recommendation. With a family team meeting, there's typically a report that is written from that family team meeting, and that report becomes part of their file. The mediation, that, like I said, if we come to a consensus recommendation, that recommendation goes to the court by way of the assistant district attorney or the child's attorney, and the court would decide whether the court has the final say in that, as to whether that becomes whether they adopt that plan or not. But there is no report as to the conversations that we had. Parents, sometimes parents are very upset sometimes, and we let parents speak freely to sometimes vent those things. But there's mediations aren't recorded. Any notes that are taken during the mediation are collected at the end and destroyed. So there's that confidentiality protection, and the mediators are neutral. So, you know, you don't have another person representing DHS who is conducting that. And so that's kind of that power differential that I would say is different with permanency mediation. And I hope that what I've said doesn't sound like I don't think that family team meetings are important. They are. And I think we've even had some conversations with some of those teams, as you know, potentially they are people who could identify a case that might be good to send them to mediation.
So Tim, then the follow on to that, because
Okay.
what I hear is two distinct differences. And that is the confidentiality piece, where all
Right.
notes are collected at the end and then destroyed. And
Right.
then there is a neutral facilitator. So can I then assume that the person conducting this mediation is truly a certified facilitator, somebody who provides the open-ended questions and allows all the information that any of the parties that are brought to the table can provide their input? Because my
Yes.
concern is that today we throw the terminology facilitator around very loosely, and they
Right.
indeed are not truly certified facilitators. So therefore, when the parties leave, they still don't feel that their voice has been heard.
Right. And so everybody that mediates a child permanency case is a certified mediator through Early Settlement Mediation, or the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board. And they have, and our child permanency mediators, in order to do that, you've gotten through a 2-day training in basic mediation, and you've had experience doing small claims cases and things like that. Then you've also gone through a 40-hour family mediation training, and you have mediated family cases, family and divorce cases. And then the child permanency mediation component is more of an advanced training to help them understand your larger audience and how to facilitate those same kinds of discussions. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay. And any of you that are interested in becoming mediators yourself, you know, that is available for anybody that wants to add a component like that. The training is free. You know, it requires a commitment to be a volunteer. But that's the other thing that is different for Oklahoma's program, is all of our mediators are volunteers. And we get comments from states across the nation, you know, how in the world do we do what we do? And you know, I guess there's probably a lot of people that are envious of what we're able to do. And those mediators, just like PARB board members, are very diverse backgrounds. You know, we've got attorneys, we have retired business people, we've got people who have had experience as federal mediators and other kinds of things who come back and volunteer. Gazelle, you said, I think I saw you posted something about you thought you filled some paperwork out or
Yeah,
something.
I had filled out the application. I think a couple people from OCA had. I don't know where they're at, but I can check with Angela, our administrator, but we were interested.
Okay, great. And Gazelle, that's another thing. Early Settlement also does agency trainings. So there are several agencies, the Attorney General's office, DHS, there are health Care Authority, there are agency groups across the state also, and they use mediation for a lot of times human relations things, you know, conflicts or whatever between employees, all kinds of things. So if you can't get an answer to some of that, Gazal, let me know and I'd be happy to follow
Okay,
up.
great, thanks.
Also.
Tim, can you hear me now?
I can.
Oh, goody. I found the right place. How do you access an application?
And I'm going off the top of my head, and how many more computers can I open up here? I think that if you're familiar with going on to oscn.net.
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, there is a tab under there for programs.
Okay.
And the Alternative Dispute Resolution Program is going to be under programs.
Okay.
And you should be able to find a link.
Okay.
And if not, I think it at least gives you contact information for Phil Johnson, who is our state director. And Carol, I guess it may be even easier. Jen Grimes is the Early Settlement Director there for Garfield County.
Really? She's used to be or might still be a CASA in Garfield County.
Okay. So
Yeah,
there's
okay.
going to be your easiest connection.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. And it's nice to hear your voice, Carol.
Good to hear you.
All right. So let's see here. Where were we? So I guess this screen has been up. Y'all have been able to see that. So we have improved communications, clarifying the issues. You know, how many times have you been trying to explain yourself to somebody and you just feel like nobody is getting what you're saying? I know that never happens. You know, people have different expectations. There are, you know, so many different issues, and it may be something really simple that somebody has felt like they haven't been heard on an issue that becomes a real sticking point. And so maybe being more definitive on clarifying the issues. You know, you see it all. Those of you that have worked in child welfare, I think or you worked in the court, I think that you know, if you ever hear the phrase, well, now I've seen it all, you know that that's not true because, you know, in the very near future, you're going to see something else and it's going to be like, oh my. And those of you, well, I think in any form of work that we do, sometimes you hear some really shocking things in a child permanency case. And I think if you're a CASA, you know that you've heard things that might be shocking. If you're a child welfare worker, or other kinds of things. And I think, or if you've had counseling experience, you know, sometimes in clarifying issues and you hear some of that shocking stuff, and this goes back kind of to the mediator, how do you kind of, what's the face? Who has a good explanation of that, not looking shocked when you hear that shocking information? Surely there's got to be a phrase for that. I see some kind of knowing smiles, but I know I'll have volunteers that are like, how do you hear this stuff and then go about a normal, you know, rest of your day? But like I said, it's a part of remaining neutral. Going in with that idea, I'm just here to help facilitate. I don't have any, I'm not going to give you any answers. I'm just going to help you have the discussions that you need. And then, so again, on the clarifying issues, you can begin to really look at some of the details, and you can help clarify, like look at the issues between parents and foster parents. You know, sometimes it is sometimes visitation things. You know, how do you clarify some of the issues, things that are happening? And then, you know, how do we come up with creative solutions? There are in a child permanency mediation a lot of professional people sitting in that room that have information on services that are available. You've got attorneys, and we always require that the parents have an attorney with them in a child permanency mediation, so that they are available. They need to take a break and have a private conversation with their client. They absolutely have to be able to advise them of their legal rights and what are the ramifications of different kinds of decisions. A lot of the cases that we get for mediation are already set for a jury trial, and they're looking at terminating parental rights. And so you absolutely have to have people that have good information, you know, DHS workers. At that point, you know, your options are very limited. And, you know, if you're looking at guardianships, is it a kinship guardianship? Is it looking at adoption? Will it be an open adoption? Is there any potential for any kind of contact with the bio parents and the children after an adoption occurs, or, you know, a permanent guardianship? So, you know, how do we come up with creative solutions? And we always talk about there is a mediation magic. When people, and Monique, you know, you kind of asked, how do people know that they've been heard? And, you know, part of that facilitating that discussion and your feedback that you're having with each individual party, you know, that is one of your goals. You to absolutely make sure that they know that they've been heard. And sometimes when people simply know that they've been heard, or they've been able to vent in a way that they didn't feel like they could in court, and, you know, and we ask everyone to be respectful of each other. That, you know, anybody with counseling experience knows sometimes that bad language is just feeling language. And sometimes we just have to allow that so that the person is heard. And from there, a lot of times, like I said, there's a mediation magic that happens, and people resolve issues. It's we can come to a solution. It's not a I'm going to win or you're going to win. You know, it's like, how are we going to come to a solution that is good for everybody, and especially that's good for the children in a case. So, like I said, there's coming up with creative solutions. It also makes mediation more fun, and it's more fun to do a mediation that is not set for a jury trial. And again, I think that's where PARB boards have that capacity to look at this, because I know, you know, how many times have you looked at cases and you know this case is getting nowhere. I think PARB board members probably become frustrated too with the progress that's happening in a case. But, you know, that could be an ideal time. And when you put on that PARB form that, you know, this may be a good case to send to mediation, I think that holds some weight. That it puts it before the judge's eyes again as another option to working on that case.
I'm surprised that for me, this is the first I'm hearing of this, which is why I was so intrigued with it.
Sure.
And I'm stunned that folks in DHS or the attorneys that are focused on juvenile docket don't seem to recommend this. I mean, ironically enough, last Thursday in Delaware County, we had a case where all 3 attorneys basically turned to us in staffing meeting and said, we have no idea what to do with this case. It's been just churning for 18 plus months. And the tribal representative stood up too and admitted they're at a loss. And we're hearing about this today. Thank you, Tim. And I'm sitting here going, child permanency mediation would be a perfect fit for this case.
Right. Yeah. It very well could be. And like I said, and as a PARB member, even I don't know how that would necessarily work. And, Keith might have to give some guidance, but you've heard about child permanency mediation today. I don't know what your contact is with DHS or with the courts or whatever, and how that could potentially, be a recommendation. Try it. Try child permanency mediation. We've looked at this case. I've heard the attorneys and your ICW worker from the tribe saying we are at a loss. So how do we do this?
So we happen to have a great relationship with the ADA, as well as many of the DHS folks. So we'll begin, and we ironically are reviewing this case as part of our PARB meeting on Friday. So this is one we will definitely be discussing.
Excellent. Very good. And they should have contact for, I don't know whether Delaware is covered by which area that they're covered by early settlement.
Yeah, I don't know. I know we're judicial district number 13, so wherever 13 sits.
Okay. I can go back and look at that map in a second. Actually, yeah, I'll have to figure a way to go back to that. But
Marcy Cox, I pulled it up, Tim. It's,
it is. Okay. Marcy, yeah.
I'll put that in there. Actually, I'll just put the hyperlink. In the chat.
Okay.
Thanks, Keith.
Excellent. And Marcy's an excellent mediator. She's also an attorney. So if anybody, she would be great.
Great.
To work with that. Thank you for bringing that up. And then Jeanette, you had asked about improved outcomes and, keeping parents engaged. I think that's, part of our family team meeting, reasons, keeping the families engaged. CIP has done joint projects with DHS and others. The ICWA partnership grant, we've worked with Pottawatomie, or currently working with Pottawatomie County. And a lot of this stuff, it's all based on communication, improving communication, improving the time to reunification. And one of the key things that we have learned in all of those projects is keeping parents engaged helps to reduce the time to reunification. So if we can keep parents engaged and they mediation allows them to have a voice, then potentially we do reduce that time to reunification or to permanency in whatever form it might take. Can help improve the amount of family time visitation parents have with their children. Again, you can have conversations between foster parents and DHS and attorneys and come up with with more or better family times. I will say one thing that, and I have to be very careful in sometimes doing child permanency mediations, is to keep my mediator hat on and not want to put my CIP training hat on. But sometimes just asking a question when I hear somebody say, well, parents had visitation and I never see that they do these kinds of things in visitation, and I will always ask the question. So share with me a little bit more on when the parents, or how the parents were made aware of what they needed to do during visitation and how they were being evaluated on their evaluation, on their visitation time. Anyway, more in-depth discussions on the issues of the children. We always have foster parents involved, or typically always have foster parents involved, so that we get a really good understanding of how the kids are doing and what they're going through. A lot of times it improves relationships between foster parents and parents. We've had, numerous cases where when it is kind of at the end of a case, it is the conversation that parents and foster parents have together that help parents make a decision on how to move forward. And it may be making a decision to relinquish their rights because they feel like that is in the best interests, but it's like I said, having that conversation with foster parents sometimes, or their adoptive placement, helps parents to make that decision. So what PARBs to know? We've already talked about some of the permanency, or that you guys can make a recommendation. And I think I think we have talked about most of that. And when I was working on putting this presentation together, I got onto your site, and I was looking at some of the forms. And some of the things that you guys are looking at when you're reviewing cases are very similar. We currently have a project with our ICWA partnership grant where we are going to be doing case file reviews on some ICWA cases that are closed as a part of our continuous quality improvement. And one of the things that we're going to add to that is, looking at the PARB recommendations and how that was impacted, looking at all these different kinds of things that are in the case. And I think part of that reason for those reviews is to, see how we can improve the work of the court and the work of DHS and attorneys and all parties and ICW and all to improve outcomes for kids. I think we still have, what, 15 minutes, Keith? How have I talked so long?
Yeah, I don't know how many slides you got left, but could you talk some more?
I'm kind of at the end of that. Any questions? Let me back up here a couple.
I was wondering if you could cover some of the nuts and bolts a little bit, as far as like how someone makes a referral.
Okay.
And I don't know, waiting time or the logistics on just, how that. I know you kind of covered how that went a little bit, but.
Okay. So when a case is referred, it is what I prefer, and I think what directors prefer. When a referral is made, and the referral could come from DHS, it could come from any of the attorneys, It could, like I said, it could come from PARB, it could come from CASA, as part of your reports that you're giving to the court, or if you are in court and making those recommendations. Our preference is, and I think most of our directors have talked to judges in their areas, and they have set up, if they are interested in doing permanency mediations, they have established some dates on a calendar where mediators would be available. And the reason for doing that is if you have 12 people that are involved in a case and you are trying to find a date and a time that you could do a mediation, it is so much easier to do when everybody is in the same room and everybody can look at their calendar and then set that mediation. From that point, the courts have orders of referral to permanency mediation that they fill out. A lot of our programs, I know in Oklahoma County, each of the 5 judges at the Oklahoma County Juvenile Center has their own order. They have regular attorneys that are contracted, assigned with their court, the ADA, children's attorney, or Oklahoma Lawyers for Children attorney, whoever is representing. Some of that information is already typed into their contact page. They have a calendar that they can access while they're in court. The judges can access that lets them know when there are available times. I think most of our early settlement offices now have acuity calendars that anybody can sign into their website, go to their calendar, and see what dates they have available. And I know they've made that available to judges. So once the referral is made and the court says, yes, let's send it to early settlement mediation, that order is completed, it's filed in the case. And I guess I should say, mediation is always a voluntary, confidential meeting. However, in this case, everybody's kind of voluntold to participate. And I think that's what we kind of tell people. The mediation can end at any time. And by them just appearing, they have fulfilled the order of the court. But the court expects us to make a good faith effort to try to resolve issues.
Yeah, I have a question. So from the time that you make the request and the judge makes the order and you guys get it, how long is it to schedule?
So depending on the court and how calendars are set up. In Oklahoma County, I have a mediation, I think Wednesday morning and Friday morning this week. And, they could potentially happen within a week.
Okay.
In Oklahoma County. Some of our other counties will have, they may have at least 1 or 2 dates a month where they could be available. We have just started doing some permanency mediations in Custer County. And, part of that, especially in some of our rural counties, you have attorneys that are covering juvenile cases in several counties, as well as the ADAs. And so sometimes it's a little more difficult to get those scheduled. But I think our next mediation in Custer County is not until June the 11th. And we've maybe had that one, I think, between the time the judge ordered, because she ordered it at the time they picked the date, I think it was about a month and a half.
Okay, just wondering if it was like a long or a backlog or if it was pretty quick. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Right. No, we try to get those in as quickly as possible. Let's see. So that's kind of how that, and then once we hold, so typically we will schedule a 3-hour time block. However, the average mediation is about an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. And so I think we are even looking at shortening some of the time on our information. But like I said, typically it is an hour and a half to an hour 45 minutes that a mediation lasts. See what other information on that. And then there is so I'll be upfront, there is a report that goes back to the court, but all that report says is that the mediation occurred and either we reached an agreement or we didn't. It doesn't tell them what the agreement was that we reached. It is that cut and dried. And as a mediator, if a judge says, Tim, I know you guys, this mediation was scheduled. How did that go? All that I can say is, Judge, the mediation occurred. Everyone that was ordered to be there was there. And I can't tell you anything else about the mediation. And judges pretty much know that from anything. Every mediation is like that.
So how if the judge orders the mediation and you have the mediation, it's obviously to solve a problem. How does it come full circle if you can't talk about it? You know what I mean? Like,
right. So if we come to a consensus recommendation that is written out and everyone signs that to say that is the consensus recommendation. And I would say most likely when there's a consensus recommendation like that made and the court sees that everyone is in agreement with that, unless there is some legal issue that people have overlooked, more than likely the judge will adopt that. And a lot of times it'll be just simply a plan to move forward. We've written consensus recommendations, even in cases where it's set for a jury trial, because of information that came out in the mediation, they may decide to give the parents like another 60 or 90 days to complete some specific tasks. They have things that they have to do. DHS has things that they have to do. The attorneys have things that they have to do, the state. So, that's if we have a consensus recommendation. A lot of the cases that we get right now, like I said, are very near the end of a case. And my own personal, here, Gazelle will talk about, data and that kind of a thing. And when I have a form that I have to fill out that says, the case ended in negotiations, I can't check that agreement box. And you feel like people are looking over your shoulder and saying, okay, why isn't there an agreement? We're asking parents to make some really, really heavy and difficult decisions because they're looking at, do I relinquish? Do I go to jury trial? What happens if I go to jury trial? And so, so many times I have to check the box that it ended in negotiations. Now, as a sidebar, because I will ask attorneys and ADAs, kind of some of their feelings on that, and they were 99% of the time, they're like, this was absolutely not a waste of time. We were able to have these discussions, and a lot of times in those cases, the case doesn't go to jury trial. It's resolved before before jury trial, or it's a lot of times resolved the day that the jury trial is to begin. You know, parents make a decision, but I still have to check that it ended in negotiations. But, you know, I am assured that the conversation was well worth having. Is that kind of, did I answer your question or?
Yeah, I think you did. Thanks.
Okay. So either we come out knowing the steps that we have to take, or parents have gotten information that they needed in order to make a decision, is maybe the best.
Have you ever had one that had everybody was in consensus, but the judge, when they received the report, was like, no? Like,
I don't believe that I've ever had one like that.
okay, just wondering.
Right, because I think the judge, you know, I think the judge realizes these people just spent how many hours, you know, putting this together, and you know, if you've got pretty good information or detailed information in your consensus recommendation, you know, that's kind of what they're looking for. And you know, it's like even in a family and divorce, they may resolve one or two issues in a mediation, which is still going to reduce trial time that it's going to take a judge, and you know, an hour and a half spent in mediation is much better than 3 or 4 days in jury trial, just as a time saving thing. So, any other questions?
Jim, can you send me your PowerPoint and any links, like maybe to the early settlement mediation or anything that this group you think would find useful, and I will send it out.
Okay, I can do that. I'll send it. I'll send the PowerPoint in a PDF form to make it easy for people to look at. So I was afraid that I wouldn't have enough to say for an hour and a half, and I get a feeling that that is not my shortcoming.
Oh, you have little faith. So thank you very much, Tim. It's nice to know you're out there. And besides your you know, mediation work, I know that you're connected to the, you know, administrative office of the courts, and just you're connected to everything court related on an administrative level. So you're often my go-to guy for not knowing, you know, who to talk to about certain court things. So I appreciate you being out there and helping us.
Yeah. Yes, if there's other questions, you know, I'd be happy to. I think, well, I'll send you out the PowerPoint, and it'll have my contact information on there. And Monique, if there's anything that I can do, if you get a hold of Marcy Cox, she will absolutely take good care of you.
Great. And I see Keith sent contact information. She must be a professor at Rogers State. So I'm assuming.
Actually, they are. So we have different. A lot of our programs are hosted by different universities.
Okay.
The universities provide office space. I think that in Garfield County, it's Northwest OSU. I can't remember which. I think they're maybe officed in the campus that used to be Phillips University up there. Northeastern University, East Central University, Cameron University. A lot of our offices are hosted by universities.
Great.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate the information because the timing was fabulous.
Okay, great. Glad to hear that. Well, Keith, thank you for inviting me to be part of this today. I love seeing new people and seeing people I've known for a while.
Well, thanks, Jim, for doing this. Appreciate it. I did record it, so if technology works well, then if you have other folks that maybe wish they had seen it, let me know, and I will send it to them. Again, technology works.
Very good.
All right, anything else, or are we good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you all, and look for more announcements next week. We'll be doing something else. Can't even remember right now.
All right.
Thanks, Tim. All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya.